أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على خير خلق والنور أرش أفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيبنا وسيدنا وسندنا وشفيعنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين. I begin in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for without His mercy and without His kindness, opportunities such as these would not be presented to us. Sorry, I think I'm getting a bit of feedback on the mic. Is there anything? Yeah, just a bit. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Where without His infinite mercy, opportunities such as these would not be presented to us, where we as fellow Muslim youth gather amongst each other and engage in His remembrance. As you know, this marks the second night of Muharram, and in this blessed month, in the first 10 days, we mourn the ultimate sacrifice of our third Imam, Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Yesterday, we talked about the first tragic event to happen in Islamic history, and we went over the fact that it did not start with Imam Hussein, nor did it start with Imam Hassan, nor did it start with Imam Ali alayhi salam, nor did it start with Fatima al-Zahra salamallahu alayha, but it started from the tragic event where people began to disobey the Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Just a brief recap of what we talked about in the last lecture for those who were unable to attend. We came to the realization that even during the time when the Prophet was alive, we had seen the companions disobey him on many occasions. And amongst the many, we talked about two major occasions, one of them being in the Battle of Uhud, where the Prophet ﷺ had told his companions to stand their post. And in turn, the companions had left their post for worldly desires where they wanted to collect booty from the enemy, hence leaving the Prophet alone on the hill and vulnerable to attack. The second occasion where we found disrespect and disobedience to the Prophet was known as the tragedy of Thursday. I urge every single brother and sister in this room to go look up this event. It's called the tragedy of Thursday. When the Prophet was on his deathbed, a few days before he passed away, he had his ummah he had the majority of his companions in the room with him. And he had ordered the people to go get him a pen and paper so that he can write down a will for them so that they don't go astray when he leaves. Unfortunately, one of the companions, who later becomes the second Khalifa, interrupts the Prophet and says, "No, the Prophet is speaking nonsense. Nobody move. The Quran is enough for us." Ironically, there's a certain school in Islam which focuses predominantly on hadith instead of the Quran, and chooses to praise the same person who says the Quran is enough for us. So sadly, we find the first tragedy which came in Islam was a disobedience to the Prophet. Now there's another occasion that comes to mind where disobedience happened, and this is what we touched on in the last lecture. That was when the Prophet announced Imam Ali alayhi salam to become his successor. Unfortunately, after the event of Qadir, we find that people did not accept Imam Ali as their Imam, and they chose someone else to become their Khalifa. And again, for those who missed yesterday's lecture, I advise you, it is very, very crucial to go look into the event of Saqifa. This event happened on the same day the Prophet was announced dead. The Prophet ﷺ was pronounced dead. And it talks about how the people, rather than going to his funeral, began to come to this discussion and discourse about who should be the next Khalifa despite the Prophet's prescription. So we outlined in the last lecture that this was the first tragic, not first, this was the Prophet was the first of many tragic events in Islamic history, which in turn led to the tragic event of Karbala, where Imam Hussein, his grandson, was slaughtered along with abuse towards his family and a massacre that we all mourn about. Tonight's topic, in turn, will be the next phase, will be the next step towards Karbala. And what I'm going to be talking to you guys about tonight is going to be Lady Fatima al-Zahra, salamallahu alayha. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. They say the salawat removes envy from the heart. So let us recite another salawat. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ahsant. As you know, the Prophet has a daughter by the name of Fatima al-Zahra. He calls her Sayyidat al-Nisa al-Alameen, amongst many names. She is the leader of all Muslim women. The status of Fatima is a very, very crucial status. And in discussion, it's very pivotal when it comes to two schools of thought, predominantly the Shia and the Sunni. As you know, we as the Shia are followers of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And the Prophet had given his daughter to Imam Ali alayhi salam. What an honor it is for the Prophet to come take your hand and say, please marry my daughter. You must have shown something to the Prophet where he has rejected the rest of the Ummah and has come to you. So with that being said, let us discuss the status of Fatima al-Zahra. Let us discuss the way she was treated prior to the Prophet's death. Let us discuss what happened towards the end of the Prophet's life, what happened after the Prophet left, when Lady Fatima al-Zahra left this world, and what happened as a result of the way she was treated. First of all, let's talk about the status of Fatima al-Zahra in the eyes of Rasulullah. As you know, the Prophet lost his mother at a very, very young age. He didn't have too much of a feminine care. He didn't have someone like that. He was always brought up by men, predominantly by his uncle Abu Talib. So whenever he had Fatima, he used to stand up when she would come into the room because he loved her so much. You know what he would call her? He would call her Umma Abiha, the mother of the father. Because the Rasulullah missed his mother so much, he began to see his mother in her, the way she used to take care of him. So the Rasulullah elevates her to this status. Furthermore, he talks about her in this way where he says, Fatima is from me and I am from Fatima. Whoever pleases her has pleased me. Whoever angers her has angered me. To this extent. Another saying the Prophet has about Fatima al-Zahra is that the people who follow Fatima al-Zahra, hellfire will never touch them. There's a famous story where one of the companions sends his wife towards Fatima al-Zahra because Rasulullah had left the city. And usually whenever you want to ask a question, you would go to Rasulullah, but the next person in line for the ladies would be his daughter. Who better than the person who was brought up in his household? Correct? So this woman asks us, we hear that your followers' hellfire will never touch you. Can you tell us the criteria for your followers? She says there's 4 criteria. Number 1 is tawalla. Love who we love. Number 2, tabarra. Hate who we hate. So the lady looks at her and says, okay, that's not too hard. We just have to see who you like and then we'll like them. And then we have to watch for the people that you guys dislike, so we dislike them as well. The next 2 are going to be impossible. The second one is, do as we do when it comes to doing good things. Meaning, do your wajibat, but on top of that, do your mustahabbat. There's a famous story of Fatima al-Zahra that touches my heart. And indeed, it shows this person's character. That you could be born in power. You can be born the Prophet's daughter. Yet you can have the most beautiful, beautiful characteristics that no one would imagine. You know, nowadays we look at someone who's born into wealth, into fame, we see what their characteristics are in the media, sadly. They've been exposed, they influence people in the wrong way. But Fatima al-Zahra, her character, when it came down to her wedding, the Prophet gives her some money to go get a wedding dress. Now those of you who are waiting to get married, you guys are probably starting to plan your wedding at the age of 9 or 10. And you guys are wondering what your wedding dress is going to look like, correct? Am I right? No? Yes? Okay, we got some here. Anyway, so Fatima al-Zahra receives this money, and as anxious as she would have been, I don't know what she was feeling, a beggar comes to her door, and she asks for money. And Fatima al-Zahra gives the money for her wedding dress to this beggar, whom she's never met. Imagine that. The day you've been waiting for, the day where the Prophet ﷺ has honored you with this gift of getting a wedding dress, she gives it to this beggar. She wears a patched up dress to her wedding. You know, that it is because of this reason that we say this wedding was held in heaven. As you know, the merits of giving sadaqah is on another level. To give your wedding dress, you know, just to show her selflessness. Subhanallah. Anyways, you know where they were for their honeymoon? She treated 63 wounds on the body of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam on their honeymoon. In the Battle of Uhud, when they ditched the Prophet, and Imam Ali was there with a couple of companions and one woman, Imam Ali received 63 wounds. This is what she did on her honeymoon. So, what Lady Fatima Zahra sallallahu alayhi is telling this woman is that do as we do when it comes to good. And then what's the next point? The fourth point is do as we do when it comes to doing things that are makruh and haram. Imagine that. So the lady says it next to her heart because, you know, it's hard enough to do the wajibat and the haram, but now I have to watch out for the makruh and mustahab. She says, yes, these are our followers. These are the followers of Fatima Zahra sallallahu alayha. But she says, it's fine. As long as you try. This is the crucial point. As long as you try to be like Ahlul Bayt, then Allah will forgive you of all sins. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As you know, the concept of Ahlul Bayt has been skewed with throughout time. And some people like to say that the wives of the Prophet belong to Ahlul Bayt as well. However, if we look into many sources, you know the verse in the Quran, Surah Ahzab, Ayah 33, where God is talking about Ahlul Bayt? Where He says, I have purified you the most thorough of purifications, Ya Ahlul Bayt, or the people of the household. People like to say the people of the household also included the wives for other political reasons. But it is reported, and now this is not from my school, so there is no bias. Fair game. We find that after this verse was revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would go to the door of Fatima Zahra, and he would recite this verse constantly, over and over and over, so people will know what Ahlul Bayt is, who this verse is referring to. For 6 months, continuously, the Prophet would go to her doorstep and recite this verse over and over and over, just so the people do not forget about the status of Fatima Zahra and her family, Hassan, Hussein, and her husband, Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahu wassalamu alayhi. Now you would think a woman with this status would get the utmost treatment after the Prophet's death, correct? It's the Prophet's daughter. Everybody knows her. She's done wonderful things. She and her husband have given everything towards Islam. No? Sadly, that wasn't the case. Before the Prophet leaves the world, he grabs Fatima Zahra, says, come here Fatima, I need to tell you something. What he tells Fatima breaks my heart. He says, in 6 months you will leave this world after me. You will only be alive for 6 months. And Fatima begins to cry. Fatima Zahra begins to cry, but then she smiles. And I can imagine this 18-year-old girl smiling at her father. And she's happy, says, at least I will be reunited with you. The Prophet had left her land by the name of Fadak. How many people have heard of Fadak? Can you tell us what Fadak is, sister? Someone else. It's okay. The land of Fadak that the Prophet left behind for his daughter. The Prophet gifted Fatima Zahra sallallahu alayha with the land of Fadak before he left. Unfortunately, after the Prophet left the world, this land was deprived of Fatima Zahra. By who? By the person who called himself the first Khalifa, Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr deprived Fatima Zahra of this land. And you know what? There's a saying by Imam Mahdi, Ajlallahu Ta'ala Faraja. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. There's a saying by Imam Mahdi where he tells someone, very close to him, he tells them the true Shi'as are the ones who have read the khutbah of Fadak. As you know, Fatima Zahra goes to the first Khalifa courageously, and she stands before him and she gives this wonderful khutbah. Unfortunately, due to the lack of time, I can't go through the whole thing. But when someone is brought up in the household of the Prophet, you can imagine what a khutbah is like from her. she brought up verses in the Quran when it came to inheritance. Because unfortunately, the first Khalifa was against prophets gaining inheritance, despite the fact that in the Quran, it specifically talks about inheritance, not only from prophet to prophet, but in the right of the woman, what she deserves. So Abu Bakr was sitting there telling her that the Prophet does not believe in inheritance. Now I'd like to raise this question to anybody who is with this idea that the Prophet ﷺ would not give his land to Fatima Zahra as a gift. Fatima Zahra was brought up in the household of the Prophet, correct? Correct? You would think that at some point, the Prophet would have told his daughter that upon my death, I will not leave you a penny's worth, because I don't believe in inheritance from prophets. Where, by the way, there's no evidence of this in the Quran. This concept is fabricated. So what happens? What happens is Fatima Zahra brings the Quranic verses. She brings witnesses. Abu Bakr rejects the witnesses. One of them being Imam Ali alayhi salam. He rejects his witnesses, her witnesses. He says, Ali ibn Abi Talib is your husband. I don't want to hear from him. Imagine that. Ali ibn Abi Talib, the person who gave his life in Badr, Khandaq, Uhud. He's your husband. I don't want to hear from him. So Fatima Zahra, with her eloquence, uses the Quranic verses. A woman just goes to show the proactivity of Fatima Zahra and the role modelship of those. She's 18 years old. Some people are 40 years old, they still haven't done anything for Islam. At the age of 18, this small girl is going and she's saying, give me back my land, it belongs to me. Abu Bakr becomes embarrassed. He says, you know what? Okay, here's your land. Now here's the saddest part. When Abu Bakr gives the land, the person who was later to be named the second Khalifa, Umar ibn al-Khattab, objects. He says, Abu Bakr, do you know what you've done? He says, what have I done? He says, you've given back that land. If you give them that land, they will become wealthy. You don't want that, do you? Because if the truth starts coming out, you and I, we are no longer in business anymore. So Umar ibn al-Khattab follows Fatima Zahra home. Umar ibn al-Khattab follows a young woman home and says, Fatima, what's that in your hand? Says, Abu Bakr finally gave me back the treaty of Fadak. Says, let me see that. And he violently grabs it out of her hand. He tears it up. And it's reported by many people, it's reported by many, many sources, that he hit her in the eye so hard that she began to bleed. Imam Ali alayhi salam comes home and he sees Imam Hassan crying. And Imam Ali reports, he's saying, I've never seen Hassan cry like this before. He says, what's wrong, Hassan? He says, Father, my mom just gave the khutbah of Fadak, and on her way home, a man hit her so hard in the face, she's bleeding, and I can't stop crying. For those of you who love your mother, and I'm sure everybody does, can you tolerate another man putting their hands on your mother? A lot of people like to ask this question, why didn't Imam Ali alayhi salam do anything? He was the person, the hero of Khaybar. He was the person who beat Amr ibn Abdul Wud, the legend in Battle of Khandaq. Everybody was fearful of him. Why didn't he do anything? Because it was under the command of the Prophet that you have to stay patient. And again, one more thing to look into is the khutbah of Shikshakiyya in Nahj al-Balagha, sermon number 3. Please, brothers and sisters, look into it, because that's where Imam Ali's tabarra comes out, where his hate comes out. I urge everybody to go look into that. So he sees Hassan crying. And he tells him to stay patient. May Allah never bring harm to the ones we love. But I ask the question, what did Fatima Zahra do wrong? Did Rasulullah not elevate her status? Did he not stand when she came into the room? Wasn't she Umma Abiha? Wasn't she Sayyidat al-Nisa al-Alameen? Likewise, the treaty was torn up and they never got Fadak. It is indeed a sad occasion, but just to paint for you how things were being ran at that time. During the time of Imam Jafar as-Sadiq, our sixth Imam, he sent one of his students to the house of Abu Hanifa. Abu Hanifa is the founder of the Hanafi school of thought in Islam. And he is a supporter of Fadak being taken away from Ahlul Bayt. And he was talking about where Abu Bakr was buried. As you know, Abu Bakr is buried right next to the Prophet. And he was telling his students that Abu Bakr was buried there because Aisha, his daughter, who was also the wife of the Prophet, inherited the land which belonged to the Prophet, which was right next to him. And that's why under Aisha's authority, Abu Bakr was buried there. The students of Imam Jafar as-Sadiq look at him, and he said, according to the Quran, the wife receives 1/8 of the inheritance. Abu Hanifa looks at them and says, yes, that's true. Then the students say, the Prophet had 9 wives. 9 wives times 1/8. That means Aisha had 1/72. That means if we were to actually go by Islamic law, Abu Bakr's head should only be where it's supposed to be. The rest of the body should be thrown out. I remember I was in London, Ontario, and this matter came up. Why Fatima al-Zahra didn't receive her land. And I was with another school of thought, and this person had disrespected my beliefs. And I went up to him and I said, why did Abu Bakr take that away from her? And why did he grant it to his daughter? If the Prophet does not believe in inheritance, why did Aisha bint Abu Bakr receive it? Why did she receive a portion of land where Fatima al-Zahra, Sayyidat al-Nisa al-Alameen, was neglected? He looked at me and he says, who was Aisha to Abu Bakr and who was Fatima? He says, who is Aisha to Abu Bakr and who was Fatima? And I'm looking at him baffled. This is the extent of ignorance. And this, by the way, this guy I'm talking to, he was a speaker for the youth group, and I'm talking to him. And I'm baffled that he's playing this semantic game, that it's a favoritism. This favoritism has to take place in order for someone to get the right inheritance, where people can make up laws at their own whim. People can make up their own hadith. People can make up their own religion and label it as Islam. As you know, this ayam Husayniyah, the days and nights of Imam Hussein, these are the nights when Fatima al-Zahra leaves Jannatul Baqi and comes to Karbala. And I'd just like to conclude with this point of the love between a son and a mother. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when he was a child, he had a very gentle look on his face. He's very gentle. When people would see him, they always wanted to smile. And when he would cry, when Imam Hussein would cry as a child, it would break their heart. They couldn't bear to see Imam Hussein crying. There's a famous hadith, famous narration where Rasulullah is reciting a sermon, and Imam Hussein comes in running in as a child, and he trips over his robe, and he starts crying. And Rasulullah stops his sermon. He says, bring my Hussein to me. Bring my Hussein to me. So the people pass Hussein as he's crying to the Prophet, and he starts kissing his neck. And he starts hugging him, and he says, do you know who he is? He's Hussein. Recognize him. Hada al-Hussein. Farifu. Recognize him. They say Imam Hussein was so sensitive as a child that when the news broke that his mother had died, he would stay in the corner of the room, and he was too heartbroken to go see his mother. And Imam Ali alayhi salam was in the room crying. He couldn't see his wife. He would go up to the companion Abu Dhar. He said, Abu Dhar, I can't pick up my own wife. Abu Dhar looks at Imam Ali alayhi salam. He says, aren't you the one who lifted the doors of Khaybar? What's going on? He says, I can't. For those of you who have a loved one, I pray that you never lose them to know their feeling, but to know that they were murdered behind a door and they miscarried their child. So all of a sudden, after Fatima al-Zahra's His body is lying there, Imam Ali alayhi salam is crying, Imam Hussein is in the corner and the children are crying. All of a sudden, Fatima's hands come back out of the kafan and says, Hussein, Hassan, come to me, I want to hug you. Allama Majlisi narrates that Imam Ali said, by Allah, I saw Fatima Zahra's hands come out of the kafan and say, Hassan and Hussein, come to me again. I want to hug you one last time. And then Imam Ali sees Jibreel come down. He says, Imam Ali, take the kids away from Fatima. The angels are hitting themselves and they're crying in heaven. They can't take it anymore. Take them away. And I'm only wondering the position of Imam Ali alayhi salam, that now he has all these kids. And they don't have a mother anymore. And he's sitting there and he's wondering, what's going on? Didn't the Prophet praise this girl? Wasn't this Sayyidatun Nisa al-Alamin? What happened? Is this not Islam? What religion is this that's taken my wife away from me? Umar narrates later on, he says, they took my right away from me for 25 years, but I could not stand the day when they took Fatima Zahra away from me. You know, whenever they say, whenever someone is grieving, they don't dye their beard, they don't take care of themselves. In one of the battles that Imam Ali was facing when he became Khalifa, he told his companions, dye your beards, look young. Because at that point, there were so many young people on the enemy side, and the only people with Imam Ali were the older people. Imam Ali tells them to dye their beard. And then they ask, Amir al-Mu'mineen, why don't you dye your beard? 30 years have passed since Fatima Zahra. And Amir al-Mu'mineen looks at them and says, I'm still grieving Fatima's death. I don't want to touch my beard. On Ashura, when they finally severed Imam Hussein's head, they had all the heads on the spears. They had all the heads on the spears except Imam Hussein's. It was on the ground. Then everybody looks at each other, they say, I don't know why, I can't pick this head up off the ground, it's too heavy. So they look at Imam Zain al-Abidin, he was sick at that time, they didn't kill him, he was able to stay alive. They call Imam Zain al-Abidin, he says, come pick up your father's head, we can't do it. He goes by his father's head, he says, Father, talk to me, what's going on? Imam Hussein looks at him, the head looks at him. He says, my son, I don't see Sakina. Where's Sakina? I don't see her in the caravan. Go find her before we leave. I'm not going to move until we find Sakina. Imam Zain al-Abidin goes to Bibi Zainab. He says, I can't find Sakina anywhere. Do you know where she is? Zainab stands up, looks left and right, and while she stands up to look for Sakina, shimmers her josh and whips her in the back. So sit back down, you wretched woman. Zainab forcefully gets up. She walks towards the horse. She sees a woman dressed in black and she's holding Sakina. She goes to the woman. She thanks her. She says, thank you for finding Sakina. Inshallah, when I go back to Medina, I'll go by my mother's grave and I'll pray for you. I'll ask her for tawassul on behalf of you. Thank you so much. The woman in the black looks at her and says, Zainab, don't you recognize me? I'm Fatima. May Allah remove His mercy from all those who cause these atrocities. Brothers and sisters, I only highlighted 2 events over these past 2 nights which led to this tragedy of Karbala. I will continue.